So how many of you currently think about people that you work with and you think, okay, I've got a problem with somebody's performance? Come on, don't be shy. How many people have had that at least in the last year or two where you've had a real challenge at least? Yeah. I think no workplace is immune. It doesn't matter if it's healthcare, education, construction sites. There's always people whose performance is challenging. And typically, what are some of the excuses that we hear for why somebody's not performing as they should? Let's hear some of them.
Tired.
They're tired. What are some other things? They're sore.
Everybody makes mistakes, they say.
Everybody makes mistakes, so could be an error. Right, or the common one that I've heard too, oh, he's not very bright, or she's not very motivated, or they're just lazy, or he's going through a tough time at home, something like that. So there's a lot of reasons why people aren't performing as well as they could. So what we're going to do today, and you're going to find that a lot of it's common sense, it's a lot of things that we already know, but just some simple ways to remember it and think about analyzing why are people not doing as well as they should, and then what to do about it. It's pretty logical, but hopefully today you'll pick up a couple tools and tips that'll help you think about enabling people to perform better at work. And a lot of that is what it is. It's just looking at the big picture and helping people do a better job. So I'm going to start with another quick poll. What does your crew, or why does your crew not do as expected? So we heard a couple of reasons. Here's a few more. Lack of resources. Has anybody experienced that? Lack of resources, not performing well because, yeah. So you could be short-handed, somebody calls in sick, or people are unmotivated. Sometimes that happens. At the same time, if you have hired somebody who isn't very motivated, whose fault is that? Any ideas?
Your own.
Probably could be your own, could be your supervisors or your lead hand or whoever got that person on the job. And a lot of times you'll hear the expression, hire for attitude, train for skill. Because you can train people, they can learn different skills, different equipment, etc. But if you've hired someone with a bad attitude, that is a very, very difficult, if not impossible thing to train away. So there are a few reasons, but at the same time, you want to have evidence. So what is the evidence that supports that this is the reason why these people are not performing? What are some ways you can find out if, for example, people don't know what to do and they are making an honest mistake? How might you find out? Ask them. What else? You could watch them. You could observe them.
Monitor them.
Yeah, monitor them. What about their reports, their work reports? You could take a look at those, see if they've had either incidents or it's taken them longer to do a job, things like that. So there's ways to figure out how people are performing. And so hopefully today we'll give you a few little tricks and tips. I've even got a free app for you to download if you want after. So we'll do that close to the end. So you don't want to end up like this guy, egg on your face, that you've not been able to enable people to perform well. So that's no fun. So we're going to talk about in this session our main objectives. We're going to look at performance versus behavior. A lot of times people mix those up and they are different. So when we're talking about behavior, it's totally different than actually performance. So performance is on the back end. It's the outcomes or the results of what people are doing at work. Then we're going to look at the 5 big key elements or factors, whatever you want to call them, in helping people do a good job. A lot of times we tend to blame the individual, but a lot of times we have to look at the big picture and realize that there's a lot of other factors involved. So we'll also talk about ways to assess and address these performance challenges, and also from a big picture perspective. So again, not just looking at the individual. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes that's just the symptom of the problem, for sure. So how many of you have heard of Stephen Covey, the management guru? Anybody? Oh, a few of you have. How many people have read his book all the way through? I don't think I have either. But one of his famous expressions is you want to begin with the end in mind. So much like if you're building a house or putting up a building, you want to begin with that big picture and then worry about how the job is going to get done and what's going to go on. But if you keep that big picture in mind, it helps motivate us. It gives us the motivation to move forward, to get towards those desired results. And at the same time, sometimes people lose focus for different reasons. And it could be maybe their equipment isn't very good. Maybe they're having a rough day, etc. So, but at the same time, if we can help keep that big picture in mind, both at the project level or at the company level, and also at the workforce level and at the work process level, it's really important. So what is not performance? Kind of a strange way to ask a question, but anything that happens in the present tense. So verbs and actions like, okay, he's practicing with this loader and they're attending training on how to put up this type of equipment, or working overtime, or complying, making sure that we've got our core certification, etc. That's not actually performance. Those are all behaviors or different things that you might see on the job, but that's not actually the results or the outcomes. So how you get to the outcomes, yes, that's part of its behavior. And if you think about a cook is tasting the soup as they go along. That would be their behavior. The outcome is, of course, when the guests taste the soup, right? So you want to get to the outcome that you're desiring. And one other quick example is running. So if you think about running is not the outcome that you want. It's the action. So how we do that and all of the factors involved will relate to our performance. So in terms of performance, a lot of people think that word and they think, oh, performance review or job performance, productivity. So sometimes it has a negative connotation, but really performance is just simply outcomes or results of behavior. So meeting a specific goal or achieving a certain result and having people apply their skills, their knowledge, all of their experience towards getting to that goal. And of course, being clear on what that goal is. What do you want to achieve and how? And of course, in your jobs, a lot of it would be certain specifications have to be met, certain standards, certain safety aspects as well. And having worked at a mine site before many years ago, I know that safety is a big consideration as well. You don't want to necessarily just do it quick. You also got to do it safely or follow protocol. So back to our running analogy, if we're thinking about performance, the outcome, again, would be the focus. So if somebody wins a race or beats their own time, that would be a specific measurable outcome that they would get to. But of course, it's the performance along the way that gets you there. I don't know if these people look like anybody on your site, maybe not. But some of these aspects of getting to the desired outcomes have to be met. So for example, people have to have clarity on what they should be doing. And if people aren't exactly clear on the task, they're like, well, I'll put this over there, okay. But how, in what way, when, makes a huge difference, I'm sure. Resources for the job. Do people have what they need? And I'm not talking just about PPE, but anything else, the materials, the tools. And a lot of times it is the right tool for the job. Even resources in terms of human resources. How many people here are short-handed right now? Couple? So yeah, the ongoing problem of resources and people are one of the major things, for sure. Rewards and feedback, we are going to talk a bit about motivation. What's the common thing that we say in Alberta? Oh, we just need more of this and that'll motivate people. What do they usually say?
Money.
Thank you, yes. Oh, we just got to pay them more. This is just Alberta, you know. And to some extent, that is true because if you do pay people more, a lot of times people will change or change jobs, but it doesn't really make them fired up and really motivated. And having worked at a diamond mine, people were very well paid. There was a lot of disengaged people there. I can assure you that it didn't matter how much they were getting paid. They needed to have that intrinsic motivation, feel good about their job, like it, have all the other things in a row. So motivation, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, interactions, how people are getting along in the workplace makes a huge difference. And one of the big topics right now is bullying in the workplace. And it goes on everywhere in every type of workplace, but it really does affect people emotionally and psychologically, and then they just don't work as well. So definitely not good for performance. So when you're thinking about performance, of course you want things all to line up. You've got the individuals, you want to help them do as best they can, help teams do as best they can, and then the whole company as a whole. Any ideas how you make that happen? What seems to work for you? How to line up all those the people and the crews and the projects to make that outcome happen. Has anyone got a suggestion?
Culture,
Culture? So what do you mean by culture?
attitude, focus.
So having a good attitude and having good focus. So as a manager, as a supervisor, role modeling that, encouraging that, yeah, absolutely. That's one thing you can do to help people get on the same page. Anything else? Attitude.
Attitudes rub off.
So having a good attitude yourself, and yeah, it is contagious. You're absolutely right. So that is important. Making sure people have what they need to do the job. So these seem like common sense things. They really are. And I'll show you in a bit. We've put it all together in a model, and there's a few ideas to expand on that. And there is an app that goes with this as well. That if you're getting frustrated, you think, oh, why are they not doing this? You can go to this app, and we can do a little bit of analysis. So right now, I've got a little handout here, and I'll maybe get somebody on that side of the room to hand out half. We're just going to deal with the one on the first page. It's a little analysis. It's going to give you a snapshot of workforce performance in your organization. So I want you to think about how people are doing their jobs. What are the outcomes that you're seeing right now? And I want you to just complete it. So the ones where you see the high scores, those are going to be your opportunities for improvement. So it goes from low to high. So number 1 is not the best score. Or in a sense, in this case, it is. So it's strongly disagree to agree to 4. So I'll just give you a couple minutes to get those handed out and fill out just the first page. So thinking about your workforce. So here's the maximizer model. This was made by a colleague of mine. It kind of puts all those things together. So having great performance right in the middle there has to do with some very easy things. You got to make sure that people know what to do. A lot of times we presume people know what to do. Well, they were hired. They've said they've done this before. So let's just connect the dots and hopefully they know how to do that. But making sure absolutely that specifically they've done that task in this situation and they know what to do. That they're able to do it, maybe physically, maybe that they have the permission to access a certain area, etc. That they're equipped, they have the right resources to do it, and as a team, have the right people with the right tasks. And of course, that they want to do it. They have that motivation. Hopefully internally, sometimes it takes a few extrinsic incentives. But these things around here, this is like the glue that holds all together is interactions. So how well people treat each other. And as we heard, attitude and feedback, things like that, make a huge difference. So here they are, once again, the 5 elements. So know what to do, able to do it, you're equipped to do it, you want to do it, and you got support, you got encouragement. So knowing what to do, how do people at your sites know what exactly to do? How do they find out?
We tell them, or they learn from other employees.
So how do they get specifics of the job? So you give them the specifics verbally? Do you give it to them in writing as well? Sometimes?
Well, verbally and visually, like.
Tell them and show them?
Tell them and show them, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. How else can you make sure that people know what they're doing or what they're about to do?
Drawings.
There's a certain amount of expectation
Drawings.
though, when you hire someone for a job, they should have those kind of skill sets.
So as much as telling and drawings are helpful or showing, but you also have some kind of presumption that they've done this, they've had this experience, they've done that before. What might be the danger in that?
Well, no
They're
idea.
assuming, yeah.
Could be a dangerous thing. How might you check to make sure?
We can call references, obviously, but
But how might you check if specifically they can actually do a task? Like how many people here sign off on people? How many people here? So a few of you sign off.
And watch and visually see that they can do the task before you sign off on it.
So watching, observing them do the task before you, thank you, yeah, exactly. So a lot of the times, it doesn't matter what job it is, whether it's construction or any other field, you need to watch people perform the task to make sure that they can do it. And I know that having worked at a site, you had to do a checkout on all the people on different pieces of equipment because they might say, oh yeah, I've run one of those before. They get up on the excavator and they don't know what to do. So you want to make sure and that you can sign off, especially if you're in a supervisor position because, of course, your butt is on the line as well. So Very, very important. So knowing what to do means having clear tasks and not presuming, because a lot of times too, if we have HR folks, we assume that they're helping screen or somebody's hiring and that they're checking these things out, but it may not be fully as much as we're expecting. As well, you want to have the targets very clear. They know what they're going to do, by what time, in what way. Project manager is a good example. They would have the specs for the job. They would have to have certain standards of quality met. Not just getting it done and on time and under budget, but well and properly. So knowing what to do also entails having somebody set that vision up. So whether it's your supervisor or your manager, but putting forth that vision, that specific of what we're going to do, and also role modeling those best practices. If you have a supervisor who's really slack and doesn't really know how to do it themselves, how is that employee going to behave? The same, probably slack and or not performing as well as they could, not executing as well. That's why, when you're getting trainers, and my field is training and development, you got to have somebody with the experience, who knows and who can also explain well. So very important, have someone know how to do it. How do you gauge workers' job knowledge? We did talk a bit about that. Observations, asking people. Checking references might be one help, but really that actual on-the-job performance is really key. Able to do it. Here we're talking about, are people physically able, or are they emotionally, mentally able? If somebody's going through a messy divorce, they might not be in the best position to operate a crane, I would say. As well, you got to make sure people have the knowledge and the skills. I know a lot of people have taken training and they've been through the course and you think, oh, okay, they know. Well, not necessarily. Could be a while since they've used it. Could be a while since they took the course. Maybe they haven't used it since the course. And so you want to just double check and make sure people can do it. Football playing, here's another analogy, same kind of thing. You want to make sure people are physically okay, mentally okay to play, and they've got some training. They know how the game is played, right? Same kind of thing. Able to do it. This also relates to are they able to, in terms of having the help to do it, the coaching, the on-the-job things like that, the supports. And again, with our football player, are they a good fit with the team? Has anyone had somebody join and they were not the right fit for the crew? They just didn't work out well? A few people, yeah. Why? Why do you think?
Personality.
Personality? So what kind of personality did they have?
Just didn't fit with the...
Just didn't fit with it. Okay. What about you? You had
Toxic attitudes.
Toxic attitudes. Have you figured out how to weed those people out faster?
Fire them.
Sometimes you got to pull a Donald Trump. Yes.
Toxic attitude will.
It's going to poison the rest of
Poison
the.
the rest of the-
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how would you check the abilities on your team? Like if people are going to be a good fit? How-
Working with them.
Working with them, trying them out,
Yeah,
talking to
tryout
them.
Periods.
Tryout periods.
Shadow,
Does anybody else do that? Tryout periods? Oh, I never heard of that. That's excellent. Excellent. Well, in a way, it's much like to a probationary period with any job. So
yeah, first 3 months.
awesome. The other thing, pretty obvious, people need the right equipment for the job. I remember when I worked at the mine site, people were getting into trouble. They were not wearing your PPE in the plant. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you wearing it? Well, the guys weren't saying much, and then they realized, they checked the dispenser at the door and it was empty. And that was the reason, a simple lack of resources. So making sure people have the things they need, whether it's tools, equipment, materials, other people helping them. And a lot of times, if you're shorthanded, you've got less things, less materials, it's tough. And the common example here for me was very obvious, a carpenter or something like that. Being equipped to do a job also means having the right procedures. How many of you have SOPs at your workplace, standard operating procedures in detail that you follow for certain tasks? How many of you write them? Oh, a few of you. That's awesome. So how do you communicate those to people? How do you spread those among the workforce so they are clear?
We have a manual there on site.
So you have a manual on site people are supposed to read? How do other people make sure that their people are aware of certain SOPs, certain procedures? Review them in toolbox talks. Great idea. Yeah, absolutely. So being equipped to do the job doesn't just stop at the equipment. It's also rules, it's also procedures, things like that. So how would you identify the resources that you need for a job? How might you figure out what all you need if you're planning a job? Some of you are in supervisory positions. If you've done the job before, okay, so you think about what you used the last time. Excellent. How else might you identify resources for a task? Any ideas?
Our sales staff, when they quote out a job, they work off of a template, so it's per fluid we install, and they just customize the template to the job, and they go and do the site meeting to quote it. So
Excellent. So you've got a template and you just customize to the job. Excellent. And templates are a great example of how to base it on your experience similarly with what you've done before. So if you're quoting a job, etc. Want to do it? How many people think this is like a major problem for a lot of employees? A few of you. Why? Why are we getting unmotivated people in our companies? Any ideas?
Kind of based on the individual, but there just might be something that they feel that they need or want.
So it could
that
be,
will motivate them. Yeah.
so maybe they need something or want something. Other ideas?
Some people just do it for a paycheck.
Some people are just doing it for a paycheck, so they're not really, their heart's not really in the job, they're just going through the motions. Yeah, and unfortunately that is the case, I think, in a lot of fields as well. Any other ideas?
Sometimes if your employee is doing more than one thing, like field work and yard work, they'll, oh, I want to be in the field, but then when they're in the yard, they're like, oh, and then they drag their feet.
So maybe they don't like part of the job.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's kind of I like this part, but I don't like this part, so.
So some employees like some parts of jobs, but not others, and others are just doing it for a paycheck. There's lots of reasons, because people are all different and we're all motivated by different things. And I used to think, what a great idea to buy people Starbucks cards. Well, if you think about it, not everybody drinks coffee, and personally, I don't even like Starbucks. So if you're giving certain things, like little incentives, for example, if somebody's put in some overtime or they've done an especially good job, you really want to give them a little extra appreciation. You want to make sure you're thinking about what do they like? What's going to motivate them? I know I had several sets of barbecue tools. Didn't really motivate me too much. So you've got to think about the person. What do they want, right? The ladies in the office, they may not be wanting those barbecue tools. They might want a Starbucks card. You've got to think about the right motivator for them. But you also have to think about what else motivates really deep inside, which is really much more powerful. So for example, an opportunity to move up. A lot of people want that. They want to be a lead hand. They want to be a supervisor, right? So, but if somebody who's an older worker, that might not be something that they're really like, oh, I want to be a supervisor. Maybe they're not really into that at this point. So you've got to find out what people want, because if you can help them get what they want, they will give you what you want, right? So what do your people want? Money? Just money? Are you not paying enough the same as other companies?
You can never pay enough.
Can never pay enough. So, and that's a good point. People will move for money. Will they give it their all and get fired up in the morning every day because they're making like $5 more or whatever? Not really.
For a few months.
For a few months, right, exactly. It's short-lived at best. Now I got a story about a heavy equipment operator. She was learning different pieces of equipment, and every time she got a new certificate for a new piece of equipment, she'd get a small raise. Awesome. I thought that was great. And I said to her, wow, so you're really working hard on all these things. That's awesome. You're going to make some more money. And she said, yeah, but I don't really care. It's not about the money. I said, well, why are you so motivated to do all these things then? And she said, well, come here. And we went into the coffee room, and she showed me that there was a chart on the wall that you guys probably have at your site too, where you've got stars of who's signed off on what pieces of equipment. And she wanted to be the same as a whole bunch of other people. She wanted to have equality. She wanted to be right up there with the rest of the people. So that was her motivation. So sometimes you think, oh, people are motivated by this, and sometimes they're motivated by something else. So it's a good idea to ask. How many people know what motivates people besides money? What are some things they like?
Valuable, being valuable.
Feeling valuable? So giving people input, exactly, some recognition, thanking them for doing something extra. Yeah, so those are some things that really fire people up. Other things are the morale of the workplace. And even like you had said, a toxic person can drag down the whole team. So can drag down the motivation. And like they say, hire for attitude, train for skill, because you can't, if you've got somebody who's like that, yeah, probably the best thing to do is show them the door, because it's not going to do you any favors. But at the same time, there's a lot you can do for, number one, screening people, but then putting things in place so they're not going to get demotivated.
Yeah, but screening people doesn't always work either. Because
That's right.
They're going to put their best foot forward. And then it's...
Could go downhill from there.
In that first little training, first few months
The probation.
of training, that, you know, the personalities start coming out and the
So
attitudes start-
there is some people who are just hiding the fact that they're not the greatest employee, and that's unfortunate. And there's probably always going to be that. Hopefully, if you can do enough checkouts and get to know people well enough, that hopefully you can figure that out in a timely fashion. What about safety trinkets and things like that, or little prizes, little trophies? Do people like those?
They do and they don't. It's...
I would agree.
Pat 4 times.
You're like, yeah, okay. Exactly. So to some extent, those things motivate. I remember when I worked at this mine, everybody got one of these little trophies. They probably broke the next week. So it wasn't too motivating. And what about if you promise people something like, oh, we're going to get everybody leather jackets, and then they don't?
Reverse effect.
Exactly. It's going to demotivate. Or if it takes like a really long time and you get them and they're hideous looking, yeah. So you want to really figure out what people want to try to keep them happy. And a lot of times, just ask. Just ask. Now, some people don't really feel comfortable saying, and in some workplaces, I don't know if you've seen this, but they do surveys. They do like a Survey Monkey or something. You can fill out an anonymous survey, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you want. And I think that's actually a good idea, because a lot of times you're not going to go up and tell the boss necessarily, or tell someone, you know, this is a horrible policy. Why are we doing it this way? But a lot of times people will say it anonymously. So I do survey design too, if you're interested. Sometimes that helps. What motivates your people? Now, some of you said more money. What else? Thanks, recognition, a couple other things that motivate your people.
Trust.
Trust? So what do you mean by trust?
Letting them take the reins sometimes.
So trusting people that they're going to do a good job, giving them the autonomy. Yeah, especially if they're ready. I would agree. I mean, nobody likes to be micromanaged and, you know, having the supervisors, someone hovering over them. And yeah, you're right. People want that independence. They want to feel good about themselves. They're adults. They don't want to feel like they're being handheld. Absolutely. One more idea? What motivates your people?
Clear goals.
Clear goals. So for example?
Like exactly what's going to happen and what they're expected to do.
So being very clear on the expectations of work, like you're going to do this and this is what's going to happen, and excellent. I would agree. If people are not sure or they're unclear, yeah, they're not going to be too motivated. And the other thing, this is the last factor in workforce performance, is really important, and this is really hard if your culture of your company is such that, you know, we're just going to give people a boot in the butt and that will motivate them. Really supportive interactions, knowing that your buddy has your back, that if something's going to happen, that, you know, they're there for you and they care. You know, you get there in the morning, hey, good morning, how's it going? How was your weekend? Those interactions, those little niceties are what make people, the interactions of the workplace work. Has anyone got a workplace where at times it's been a little toxic and their interactions have been a little awkward or a little uncomfortable? A couple of you, brave souls. Yeah, I know I've worked in places like that, and it just makes you miserable. You show up and you're just not happy. So especially, what's the most important relationship at work? You and your boss. Exactly, you and your boss. If you and your boss don't get along, chances are your days are going to be numbered. Either you're going to vote with your feet or they might ask you to leave. So yeah, you want to get along well with people and you want to have respectful, fair relationships. And when you don't, I think that is a big, big factor in most people leaving. They say you don't leave the company, you leave your boss. So very important to have those good interactions. And if you are a boss, if you're a lead hand or a supervisor, setting that bar high and role modeling good behavior is really what you want to do. And sometimes, we get busy and we forget, but really, really important to give people an attaboy, tell them they're doing a good job. So good work relations also start at the top, so the leaders also have to be supportive, encouraging. And of course, being that I come from training and development, I do support the fact that you're all here and somehow you were able to leave work and come and join us for this session today. So sometimes investing in people and giving them some training, or even if it's on the job and they get to learn how to operate a new piece of equipment or do another task, people like that. That's learning. That's more engaging. And also input. Who is it said input? I think it was you. Yeah, having people have input and opportunities to learn absolutely fires up a lot of people. So if they don't and they just feel stuck, they're in it for the paycheck, right? And that's no good. So what are some supportive interactions you see at your workplace? Like, do you see high fives, good job?
Actually, yeah.
Let me get you at Timmy's. Something like that? Yeah. And it makes people feel good. It makes people want to be there. And
Especially when the crews get along and everybody's interacting positively with each other in the mornings, especially loading up and that positive attitude. And
positive attitudes. Exactly. How about if people have to work late? If they're got to put in overtime, what might be some ways to make them feel good about that?
They're getting paid overtime.
They're getting paid overtime, but what else? Supper. Where?
Wherever they want.
Oh, now that, I would be into that. That's nice. Yeah, take people out for supper. Treat people well, and they are going to rise to the occasion. So again, here's our quick elements. Again, this is pretty common sense, but putting it all together in a neat little package. So making sure people know what they're going to do, that they're able to do it, that they have the resources, that they actually want to do it, hopefully. And ideally, if you're having good interactions, it's important too. So all those things you have a role in, especially if you're a supervisor or a lead hand. So we have another sheet. So if you go to the second form, this, we're going to think about the most challenging person on your crew, or the most challenging person you've even experienced working with over the few years. So think about them. I want you to check off the items. Any of the unchecked items are opportunities. So if you have those things, check them off. So think about that person and go through and check off what things you have already. And then you'll see, aha. Good discussion. So here is my favorite quote of all time. This is by some workforce improvement experts. And they say, if you pit a good performer against a bad system, the system will win every time. And this goes to show that it's not just about the individual, it's about the whole situation. Do they have the equipment? Are they paid well? Are they being held accountable? Are they clear on their tasks, etc.? Are they getting feedback? Are they getting told, don't do it that way? So very important that you look at the whole system, because a lot of times, I know I've been a performer in a system and I've been doing the best I can and I'm skilled for that job, and the job is just not set up for me to be doing what I could do best at or be successful at. So how well do you think your system is working? Anyone want to be honest and say, is it working okay? You're all here. Well, I hope this gives you some ideas of where to look for some opportunities to improve workforce performance. And it is common sense, but it makes you kind of drill down and analyze things a little bit deeper and figure out why. Anybody heard of the 5 whys before? Yeah, asking why 5 times will help you drill down. It's kind of like a kid saying, well, why is this? Why is that? By the time you get to the 5th why, usually you can figure out the source of the problem. So if you're thinking about big picture thinking, again, you've got a workforce or the workers, you've got the work processes or procedures, and you've got the workplace. All of those things have to mesh or line up. So my little example, and I'm just throwing this out there, if you're looking at the new arena site, there's a shortage of, say, concrete workers. I don't know, maybe there is. That could put the whole project behind. And then what happens after that? cost increased. And then who pays that? Taxpayers of Edmonton? Daryl Cates, maybe. So as you can see, it's all interconnected in one big system. You've got the work site or workplace, you've got the workers, and the work processes itself. So sometimes areas of improvement are in each of those areas. So what the workers do leads to a team result, which leads to a company result. So it's all connected. So if you can get better performance out of your people, you're going to get better outcomes for your whole company. And I was going to go through a process plant case study, but I think we're going to skip over that one in the interest of time. So in reality, what you want to do is assess the needs of people, systematically go through and do the checks and figure out what's missing. What do they need more of? Do they need more feedback? Do they need more specific feedback? Do they need more detail on how exactly to do that job? Do we need to check our people out better before we hire them? And then you want to take action based on what you find. So identifying the barriers to people performing is a really good thing to do. And really, I like to avoid blaming people, but looking first to the system, because an overwhelming amount of research and jobs in a ton of different areas have showed that mostly the problems of performance are in the system. They're in the workplace. So it could be in how the boss is treating them. It could be how the procedures are set up. It could be in the lack of being equipped or lack of resources. It's not necessarily in the individual, although that's part of the first step, is making sure you've hired the right people.
Isn't it the individual who controls all those things?
It is to some extent, but I don't control what kind of tools they're giving me if I'm on a carpentry job. And if I've got crappy tools, what kind of a job am I going to do?
The way that I interpret what you were saying is like it's more like the boss is what you're talking about right now. Is the person who can control that situation. How are they handling those things, and how are the systems set up, how are the policies set up, all those types of things.
And that's a great point. That is a great point. A lot of times it does come down to that interconnection. And sometimes somebody at the bottom might be able to move an idea forward and say, hey, we got to stop doing this because this is wasting materials. But at the same time, you have to have those interactions in that workplace and the organizational culture that supports bringing those ideas forward and improving. But you're right. A lot of times it does come down to somebody in authority also realizing that we have to treat our people well. We have to give them what they need and what they want in order for them to do a good job, in order for them to get this project done. So it is all interconnected, and definitely power is definitely an issue for sure. So here's another quick poll. How does your organization or your company check work performance? So we heard a couple people say observations, checking references. What else would you do?
Calculate averages.
Calculate averages of their...
What they've done for the day, like depending on what they're doing, setting a fence, or we can usually work out an average to see how they're performing for the daily task.
That's a great idea. So calculating the average of their performance or productivity.
Yeah.
So it's almost like throughput, or how much they're able to produce or how it get done in a reasonable amount of time. Mm-hmm. And you'd probably have statistics on that or records. And in any job, that's a great thing to do, is look at the records. So whether it's a salesperson, look at their records, look at their past, how can they improve their performance? So yeah, a lot of times it's the products of people's work and even watching the work themselves. So when you're assessing them, yeah, there's a variety of things you can do. We've talked about those. And then, of course, there's these two tools that I've just given you. If you want electronic copies of them, just we can exchange cards after. I'll give you a card, and I'll be happy to share them with you. But ideally, you want some proof. You need some proof that this is the cause. And I know I've seen in a lot of organizations, they keep sending somebody back to training. You've ever seen that? Oh, he's not doing it right. Let's send him back to training. Oh, still not doing it right. Let's send him back to training again. A lot of times, training is not the answer. As much as I wave the training flag. I mean, it's not always the answer unless they're missing some knowledge. So not going to solve the problem. Again, here's a few more issues. So if people aren't feeling rewarded or they're not feeling motivated, what can you do? Praise them. Give them some positive feedback. Give them a little incentive. Pick up some Timmies, something. If people aren't skilled, what do you do? If you find out people don't have the skills for the job, what do you do? Train them.
Work side by side with them, and so they know what they're doing.
So work side by side, show them what they need to do. So that's on the job training, absolutely.
It's one thing to tell them how to do something, but if you work side by side with them and show them as you're going along,
Absolutely.
visuals are better than words.
So yeah, absolutely, I agree. On-the-job training is a lot more effective than just sending them to the class or just telling them. You want to show them, but also give them feedback and guided performance for sure. So again, two other little issues I want to point out. So if you have somebody who lacks the traits or the skills needed to do the job and they're in the job, what do? Well, that's a tough one. You either have to let them go or you could reassign them. And if people don't have the knowledge or skills, you do the training. So few little problems that are unique that you have to deal with. So who's got their phone here? Everyone, all right, so we want to get your phone out. This is the free app that you can download. It's called, if you go into the App Store, if you type in behavior, and it's spelled the American way, behavior engineering model. Yes, you too will be an engineer of behavior. It's a series of 6 simple questions, but sometimes it helps you think about where is the challenge in the workforce. So it's by a company called Innovative Learning Group. And the last thing we're going to do before we go is, because if we don't think about how we're going to use what we learned today, what's going to happen? It's going to go in one or out the other. So if you want to take the Stop, Start, Keep action plan out, I strongly encourage you just to jot a few words down, because otherwise, if we don't actually write something or think about it, we don't end up using it and it'll be lost. So I want you to think about one thing after you heard what you heard today. What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing? Or what are you going to keep doing? If you can't think of one of them, that's okay. But something you're going to stop doing, something you're going to start doing, something you're going to keep doing. It could just be a short, simple little thing. Does anyone want to share something that they're going to start doing after what they heard today? Performance reviews. So formal ones. Why is that?
You guys were asking for.
Oh, very good. Oh, okay, well, that's awesome. I'm glad it motivated you to do that or helped you get the impetus. What about you? We haven't heard from the token gal in the group.
Maybe express more appreciation to the guys. I'm not a very,
Oh,
very
expressive
gentle
person.
person. They're up there.
It's probably fitting that you work there. So express a little more appreciation and let people know what they're doing well. Great, thank you. It helps reinforce the behavior for sure. Anything else? One thing you're going to start doing?
Paying more attention to the morale and performance of our crews.
Great, so paying more attention to the morale, the performance of people on the cruise. Excellent. What are you going to stop doing that you realize, well, maybe that's not such a good idea? Anybody brave enough?
Expecting that people know what they're doing all the time.
Yeah, okay, so stopping expecting that people, assuming, right? We don't want to assume,
Yeah.
we know what that does, right? Yeah, we don't want to assume people know what they're doing. And that is a common assumption, is that people were hired, they have this background, we think they should just be able to do the task. But making that extra check to go through and sign them off or whatever, good idea, great. What else are you going to stop doing? Anybody? No more construction boots to the butt? No? What are you going to keep doing? What did you hear that helped validate something that you already do in your workplace to help?
Coach, mentor, train.
Coach, mentor, train. Sounds fantastic. And you're finding that that helps people quite a bit. Excellent. Coach, mentor, train. I'm all about that as well. What else did you find that was validating? You thought, yep, we do that.
Recognition.
Recognition. So in terms of,
Tell them when they do a good job.
okay,
And
excellent.
the clients give positive responses on projects to let the guys know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. People like to know that their work is appreciated, that they've done a great job. Excellent. Thanks. So in summary, you want to focus on the big picture, the desired results, just like the building. You're looking at building performance here. So how can we get there? How can we help people really give their all and feel valued? Also looking at how can we assess and address those gaps in performance. And a lot of times it's a drill down. That little app will help you out if you're really struggling. And as well, thinking that there might be more than one solution. It might not just be better tools. It might not just be hiring more people or just doing performance reviews. A lot of times it's a combination of things. They're going to get better performance results from your people. So any questions with that? So with that, I want to thank you all for being such a great group today, and I hope you enjoyed your lunch and learn. And I've also left the evaluation form on the table, so on your way out, if you can complete your evaluation form real brief, I would love to enhance my own performance and improve, so give me a few comments, and the ratings scale goes low to high. You can put it in the envelope on the end here, just on your way out, that would be great.